Welcome to Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville. Join 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome once again to another edition of Mike's on Mike. Nice to have you with us, and thank you all for joining us. This, of course, is brought to you by the Jacksonville History Center, which is the home of the Jacksonville Historical Society. And thank you to Alan Bliss and the donors who have made this program possible. We appreciate it very, very much. Special guest this episode, we're happy to have the Honorable Warren Jones, representing District 5 of the school system, and it serves on the school board. I've known Warren ever since I think I came to town, but he has been on one body of government or another for the last 150 years. And he has another year to go before he's termed out.
I got 12 meetings left.
But who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting?
Just to give you a bit of an idea on that, Warren served on the Jacksonville City Council from 1979 to 1999. That's 20 years. 2 of those years he served as president, 91 and 92.
Back to back.
Back to back. And he also served not just from 79 to 99, but then again from 2007 to 2015 because his lovely wife kicked him out of the home. And as we said, his term comes up in 2024. And this is such a great pleasure.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
So good to have you with us.
Appreciate
and thank you very
being
much.
here in your presence. A lot of history in this room.
You're just that kind way of saying we're very old, huh?
I'm in that group too.
Oh, that's great, though. All right, Mr. Tolbert, kick it off, will you please?
Come on, Michael.
Warren, you know what? I'm so grateful to you for coming today and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us, and we're all grateful for your decades of service to Jacksonville. It's just outstanding and incredible.
Well, thank you.
I want to talk about, get us started by talking about the school system. To my understanding, the system has about 130,000 students right now. School boards and teachers are being told by the governor they can't teach Black history. Books are being banned. Parents are demanding to be able to dictate what students are taught by teachers. Private charter schools have been given state permission to take what was supposed to be public education money. There's a teacher shortage, and over 40% of the teachers in Duval County are in their first or second year. In addition to all that, the search for a new superintendent ended without a new superintendent. So tell us about the state of education in Duval County and give us some good news.
We didn't tee it up for you too much.
Oh, let me start. Let me say that I'm just thankful that the teachers do the job they do each and every day. We have some fantastic teachers. We have some outstanding principals, and they're doing their best they can to educate all of our students. I mean, we, as former school board member Stan Jordan told me when I was on the city council, he said, unlike other schools, the public school system has to take everyone who comes to the door, whether they can read or write or not, whether they're crippled, blind, we have to take that child. That's required. Mm-hmm. And I never forgotten that. And so we have a very diverse district with many, many challenges, just like any other urban district has. And of course, we look at the Big 7 in the state of Florida, and we always are trying to compare our results with the Big 7. We can't compete with a Clay and a St. John's, the bedroom community, but we can compete, and we are doing well with the Big 7. That's Dade, Broward, Orange, Hillsborough, and a couple of them. I can't think of all of them. But so we are doing that. And of course, the beauty of what I found on the school board when I first got there was that when Dr. Vitti as state requires that you have a private engineering firm, Jacobs Engineering won the bid, to examine every school building in the county. That's required every 10 years. And when that study came back, it showed that our district had the oldest schools in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Vitti transitioned out, and we hired Dr. Green, and she took that plan and she said we got to do a half-penny sales tax to address the old decaying schools that we have. And what surprised me on the school board, unlike the city council, is that they didn't try to spend that money, spread it out evenly around the district, the county. Because 45% of those dollars was going to the core city, there were some council members who tried to use that to divide us. And the school board stood tall and they said, look, that's where the need is. We're going to spend those dollars based on the need. And because the core city had the oldest schools, we have several, Annie Morgan, several schools that are over 100 years old. Henry Kite, I mean, and as Don Nelson, the director of operations at the time, said, they're eligible for Social Security. You know, over half our schools are over 70 years old. So that says a lot. So we agreed to spend the money based on the recommendations from the engineering firm, which ones need to be replaced, and they put a facilities condition index on each school. If it was met a certain threshold, then that school was replaced. So we're in the process now. The good news is we're in the process now of rebuilding 26 schools on site and adding 2 additional new schools. Of course, things have changed since that 2020 vote, when we voted to improve the voters. The Duval County voters approved the half penny for public education. Charter schools have really taken a lot of students from us. Private school vouchers are really flowing. So our enrollment has diminished by almost 10,000 students over the last 5 years. So we are now in the process of re-examining how large a facility we should build in new schools. Of course, the charter schools are new and bright and shiny, so a lot of parents are looking to, I want my child to go to that new school. And we're competing against that. We also have principals and some front office staff who have forgotten that we're in competition now. You know, it used to be you lived in a certain area, you went to that school. Well, we're competing with charter schools, private schools, homeschool students. We're in competition, and we have to make that mindset adjustment that we now have to compete, and we have to have the strategies in place to keep students that we have and hopefully try to attract some of those kids who have left the school district come back. But we have a lot of challenges, and of course, our dear governor has not made it very easy to even attract good candidates as we begin the superintendent search. Dr. Green was the 8th superintendent out of 12 statewide who has been replaced since, of the 12, all 12 imposed a mass mandate. And so she's the 8th one to be removed and pressured to resign, and that's what she did. So in 2018, when we did the superintendent search, we had over 70 applications of people who were interested in coming to Duval County. This year, we only had 10. And we were told by we contracted with the Florida School Board Association to do the national search for us this time. And Andrea Messina, who's the CEO, told us that we probably wouldn't get as many applications from out of state. Well, we didn't. We only got 10 total. Yeah. And of that 10, 5 didn't even meet the minimum requirements, which we wanted someone who had been working in a school district with at least 20,000 students. And we didn't get that.
Can we go back and talk about Dr. Green's resignation for a minute?
Okay, the forced resignation. Yeah.
Forced resignation. Yeah, you know, Warren, by all accounts, she was a pretty damn good school superintendent. And you already mentioned she helped raise the funds for school improvement and construction with that half penny. Mm-hmm. She helped raise the money for teacher salaries with the $1 million.
Right.
She led the effort, or was a participant in the effort, to remove the Confederate names from some of the schools. She had to deal with the grand jury report about police issues, not reporting crimes in the school system. She led that big district through the pandemic.
Yes, he did.
And then the number of A schools in Duval County has increased 30%. Graduation rates are up. In 2001, she was the state superintendent of the year.
Right.
So what the hell happened there? Why in the world did she get chased out of town?
Well, a lot of that emanates from Tallahassee, and I think the governor wanted her out. And of course, he came in town August of last year, Sunday before the first primary, endorsed 2 candidates. One was an incumbent. She won re-election. The other one was not an incumbent, and she beat the incumbent. And that gave him 2 votes on the school board. And then he, in January or February of this year, he targeted 2 additional school board members to replace in next year's election. So I think the combination of that and the pressure that the district was under because of what happened in Douglas Anderson, and that person, the first incident occurred in 2006. Dr. Green wasn't here. The next one occurred in 2008. She still wasn't here. Then again in 12, then in 16. The only one that she was present in is 2021. So there was 5 cases where he was accused of inappropriate conduct. Only one under her watch, but yet the board felt, 4 members of the board felt like that she should be held responsible and she should be removed. And when she discovered that she had 4 votes to remove her, she decided to take the option of retiring early and not fighting it. But it was unfair to her. I thought that she did an outstanding job. She was not only principal superintendent of the year, she reduced the number of D and F schools. We have no F schools today, but she reduced the number of D schools from 27 down to 9 during the pandemic. She worked very hard using the federal dollars to make sure that every child in secondary school, that's middle and high school, had a computer for the rest of their time in the district. So that if we ever went on a lockdown or a hurricane hit, they can still continue to do their work at home. And so she's done an amazing job in transforming the district and moving it into the 21st century with new school buildings. And fortunately, she was here. We insisted that she come back for the groundbreaking for a ribbon cutting, for the first new school, Rutledge Pearson, and she was here for the groundbreaking for the first new high school in Ribault. So she's done a good job, Mike, and it's sad that we, less than a year ago, May of last year, we voted, I think it was 6-1 to extend her contract for 3 years, give her a 10% raise, and gave her effective evaluation. And then less than a year later, we're getting rid of her.
Can I jump in just for a quick?
Just go ahead.
All right. The backstory of what led to Superintendent Green's resignation, I'm sure, is generally known within the educational community of this state.
Right.
What kind of impact do you think that might have had on us not being able to attract more than 10 applicants for her successor?
You must have been talking to my wife. Same thing. Who want to apply when you just ran off of the superintendent of the year a couple of years ago, and a woman who was doing outstanding work and moving the district forward?
And more than that, also is got a target on her back by the governor of the state of Florida. Yeah. I mean, aside from all the rest of that, nobody wants to have a target on their back from anybody who's sitting in that office in Tallahassee.
We just left the Council of Great City Schools conference in San Diego 3 weeks ago now. And one of my church members now, who grew up here in Jacksonville, who became a principal here, left here, and now he's the superintendent in Little Rock, Arkansas. I said, well, why you didn't apply? He said, Warren, you know why I didn't apply. The governor's not going to let many of us who are really caring about our students, whether they're LGBTQ students, they're Black students, no matter what position they are in life, we have to work with all those kids. And I think that's what really troubles a lot of people is the cultural wars that have been made school board races so political. I really wanted to see another Mike run for District 7, but he decided he wouldn't do it. I'll leave that one alone.
On a serious note, going back, when
we haven't been serious up until now.
No, I was thinking on my school board thought. Not only is there any applicant looking all that she did here, the 2 referendums, all that nobody ever touched before. And now with two votes on the school board, the governor's already said he and Moms of Liberty are involved. So they're going to have a search, in the spring. If you had 10 apply and only 5 didn't even make it, I doubt if anybody's going to sit and want to do it until they find out whether the new school board members are going to be elected in November. So we've got an interim superintendent. So we're looking at least a year from now,
another year.
So we're talking about 130,000 students.
Well, that includes the 30,000 that are in charter schools.
Okay,
now.
so we're talking about 100,000 students.
Yeah.
So we're without a leader.
Right.
And my understanding is that a lot of the senior members of her staff have left.
Yes.
So you all are really keeping together with barbed wire and chewing gum.
Yeah, we have some good people, but you're right. The turnover has been not good for the district. A lot of institutional knowledge has left.
Exactly.
Some for, some because they see what's happening and see that the attacks on public education. We have never taught sexual orientation in class. We never taught that. We never taught critical race theory. But when the governor says you're doing it, and the legislature approves bills banning it, then it must have been true. And a lot of people believe that. Nobody's done. We have students who we protect because they have told a teacher that I'm gay, I'm lesbian, whatever the case might be. But we want to protect that child. And many times their parents reject them. We've had cases after cases where parents, a teacher it was on the news, national news, right, where one student was kicked out of his home.
Exactly.
Because he
came
gay.
out of
Yeah.
And the teacher had to sign for him to go to college because his parents wouldn't even sign for him to go. And a very bright student who went to Stanton Pax, one of those schools. And then we had a teacher before Dr. Green left, who was challenged by a parent for 2 words in a play she produced, and she had to go before professional standards, had to spend $2,700 to get an attorney just to keep her teaching certificate. So Dr. Green said, that's it. We're taking all the books off the shelf until they have been reviewed by the media specialist, because we don't want another teacher to go through what that teacher had to go through because of 2 words in a play that she produced.
I don't know if we all already know the answer to this question based on what you've already said, but with the $1 million passing for raising teacher salaries.
Right.
Obviously, that was done so that we can attract more talent to our county. But as you're talking about the siphoning by charter schools and private schools, has that then hampered the effectiveness of that $1 million increase in salaries to attract new? I'm sure the teachers we already have are delighted, but are we able to attract new teachers because we've raised their incomes by that $1 million referendum?
Well, it has helped us, but it also helped the charter schools.
Yeah.
And there is a per pupil funding that goes to the charter schools.
Right.
But the other problem we had as a district, unlike the charter schools, is when the governor increased the starting salary for teachers to $47,500, that was great news for a first-year teacher, but he gave no money for experienced teachers. So that meant you had to work, a teacher working 17 years to get $47,500. It went from $39,500 to $47,500. So that was great news for starting teachers, but we had to find a way to take care of our veteran teachers. And studies show that teachers in their 5th to 10th year is when they become most effective. So somebody made a point earlier about we having so many young, inexperienced teachers. Well, they're not. We're providing professional development for those teachers, but it takes a while for them to learn how to manage the class and become very proficient in teaching that subject. And when you have a teacher leaving because, hey, I've been working 17 years and you just came in here, you're making $500 less than me, that's crazy. So that allowed us to keep, unlike St. Johns County, you saw the teachers there protesting. They lost 134 teachers retired because they were not getting that that difference for their experience. So we now have a mechanism that we can pay our experienced teachers more, and that has helped us attract. We still have over 200 vacancies, but that's down from the 400 we had last school year.
Yeah. And how are we doing as far as students at college age wanting to go into the teaching profession?
That's a big challenge. Dr. Green pointed out at one of our workshops that if you took the University of North Florida has about 200 students in their College of Education. If all of them graduated today and came to work for the district today, we still would have had over 200 teaching vacancies. Edward Waters University has done away with their education program. JU is considering doing the same thing. Kids are just not going into public education. We started an early college program geared to teachers. So Westside High School and First Coast High School has the early college where you graduate with your AA degree and your high school diploma at the same time, with the hope that they will go. They don't have to, but the hope is that they will go into education.
Right.
Well, you add that to the turmoil.
Well, thank you for all that positive news, Warren. I want to go back for a minute. If I can go back for a minute to the Douglas Anderson situation, you outlined the number of years that it happened before Dr. Green was ever even here.
Correct.
I've been wanting to ask this question for a long time. Maybe it's been asked and answered. But were the principals or principal at Douglas Anderson held accountable for any of that?
Well, it was interesting you said that. The Office of General Counsel pointed out that we should not do anything until we complete a thorough investigation. Of course, the board felt differently, that they need to let the superintendent go. But we have a outside law firm, who's investigating that, so we can hold the individuals that were responsible for that accountable. But that report is supposed to be done sometime at the end of this calendar year. So we hope to have that report back the end of this year so that we can hold those individuals accountable who were responsible for allowing this behavior to continue for all those years, from 2006 to 2022.
There was another...
Wait a minute. Was there one individual or was it multiple individuals that were inappropriate?
Well, there was one individual that was inappropriate, but other teachers knew about it, so they had a responsibility to report it. So they had to be removed.
And there was and the school had a principal.
Yeah,
way before it got to the superintendent level.
That's right. And
so I've always wondered why the buck didn't really stop there.
Right, with the principal.
But the principal that was there when those cases happened all have retired. The principal that's there now has only been there a year and a half. So,
but still, if Jesse James robbed the bank and then got shot and killed, he still robbed the bank.
That's correct. Yeah, and that's what we hope that we can. This investigation will uncover just who was responsible, whether it was the principal, the regional superintendent, the Office of Professional Development, who was responsible for sending that to the Department of Education, whether the sheriff's, the police chief who also resigned. He resigned after that occurred too. But we need to know exactly who to hold responsible for and accountable for what happened and neglect that. But
at the end of the day, the person who ended up taking the blame for that was the superintendent.
Right.
The superintendent. So all these people have either retired. It'll be a report that'll go. We'll probably get a 30-second soundbite on one of the news channels. The report will be put on a bookcase someplace. But Dr. Green, it's going to be, they will remember that Dr. Green, something happened under Dr. Green's watch. Yeah. So that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's what's so, that's why two of us voted against her retiring, because we felt it was unfair the way she was treated. The other person voted against it because that individual never supported Dr. Green and did not want her to receive a dime from the retirement. So, but yeah, people don't know that. But the vote was 4-3 to accept her retirement plan, settlement agreement. Mm-hmm. And two of us, Darryl Willett and myself, voted for that against that because we felt like she was done an injustice, which she was. The other person voted against it because they felt like she didn't deserve any type of settlement.
Wasn't there also allegations about the underreporting of criminal activity that went on in the schools, and that was also part of this? That
was part of it. The attorney also pointed out that someone went to the Office of Professional Development and took all the files that were not sent to Tallahassee and sent them all to Tallahassee at one time. It was over 50. Found out that many of those files were did not have to go to Tallahassee. They were simply people being late to work and being cited for that. So nobody had gone through it to just pull out those that were required to go to Tallahassee. So the news just said...
The misdemeanors versus the felonies, if we can put it in those
news
terms.
Media said 50 cases not reported to Tallahassee.
Right.
And, of course, it was 50 that was not reported, but all 50 didn't need to be reported.
Exactly. Well, it goes back and begs the question, who in their right mind is going to want to come here and put their name in the hat knowing what... I mean, anybody who is worth their salt is going to go back and check, should I move there? And then they're going to want to know why we've had so many superintendents and why Dr. Green left. And the other thing is she accomplished all these things. By the way, there was never a thank you in the newspaper. Nobody gave her a thank you. There was no thank you anything. So they're going to look and go, why would I put my professional career on the line, move my family here? I mean, don't mean to be crude, but we're in a hell of a spot if we're going to try to find somebody professionally to come in here, or they're going to say, I'm not going to come here because the governor's going to run my school board or my school system.
And that's the good news is we feel like that we are an attractive location to your point, but we made two miscalculations. I won't say mistakes. One, we tried to hire a superintendent in the middle of a school year. And we had not done that before. It was always an end. So any sitting superintendent would not want to leave their district to come to another. So is that
why we went and extended it till June of next year to get them out of school?
Yeah. So we hired somebody like we did Dr. Green. We hired them. And they started work July 1st, which that means that you finish your time at your former school district before you start a new one. So that was one consideration. And the other is, of course, we can't control that, is the politics in the state of Florida over public education. And also the third factor was you have two board members who are termed out, Laura Hirsch and myself. You have two board members up for re-election, Cindy Pearson and Kelly Coker. And then you have two additional school board members who may be up for re-election because of reapportionment. That lawsuit is pending and the judge has not ruled. So you could have a complete turnover of your board.
Good Lord.
And you don't, but hopefully we'll have a decision on the other two, because district that Darrell Willey represents and the district Charlotte Joyce represents, really those districts were changed, drastically made changes in the reapportionment. So they filed a suit to require that they run again next year, when their term is not up until 2026. So the judge will make that decision, I'm sure, by the first of the year, because you got to qualify for the office in May of next year. So hopefully that will be settled. So the person looking to apply will say, well, I know these two be here along with the other two that's not for re-election.
Mr. Tolbert?
I'm just sitting here thinking, listening to Warren, with Governor DeSantis, the Republican-controlled legislature, the effort by DeSantis to take over school board members and have his people on school boards. Warren, do you think we're headed toward an effort to have an elected superintendent? Doesn't have to be a professional, but it can be a politician.
Well, the former mayor had floated that idea out and there was so much pushback. I would hope from the business community too, because the last time we had an elected superintendent, the school district became disaccredited, and that's why they chose to go to an appointed superintendent, a professional person. And when you look across the county at the state of Florida, you find those districts who have appointed superintendents do better academically than those who are elected. So we've done that study. So hopefully that will influence some folks. And the other concern is with the upcoming election in August of next year, the question before the voters is, do you want Tallahassee to control your district, or do you want to control the district? And there is an attempt to take over school boards throughout the state of Florida. And if we're not careful, that can happen here. It hasn't happened thus far because we have 5 members who focus first on student education and not on the politics. We have a few who listen to Tallahassee on directions on which they should go. We have a number of good programs. We have the Hazel Health that Moms for Liberty wanted us to not reapprove. We did it anyway. We have the Restorative Justice Program that is being challenged, and we approved that. And then the Department of Education wanted to see all the supplemental information. So we're concerned about how that's going to work. But we want to make sure that if a student gets in a fight and no one is injured, that child is not arrested. That they're punished, but they're not arrested, so they don't have an arrest record, which will follow them for the rest of their lives, where it prohibits them from going to the military. It may prohibit them from getting into a college or a good job. So we work with several organizations to make sure that we have an effective restorative justice program so that the sheriff can use that and the school police can use that to correct the problem and work with that student to make sure, even though that child is punished, make sure that child recognizes the harm that he or she has done to someone else.
Picking up on what Mike said, talked about an elected versus appointed superintendent, is there a concern by y'all in the school system that there's going to be a push to make school boards partisan?
Oh, that's on the ballot next year. And that's one reason why I chose not to endorse anyone, because I don't want people to think, well, he's nonpartisan, but he's endorsing Donna Deegan for mayor. I don't want them to use that against me because there is.
Well, Warren, part of this, another piece of this puzzle is that Republican members of the legislature apparently are also looking to give municipalities within a county the ability to have their own school system, which if that works, that means that in Duval County, Jacksonville Beach could have its own school system. Bayard maybe could have its own school system. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, what it does, it breaks down the ability to lead and control what goes on in education that should be going on in education.
Yeah,
or it will just drive more parents to consider charter schools.
And that's what is interesting you said that, because each charter school has their own board. And some of the charter school board members don't even live in Duval. They don't have to live in Duval County. They live in the country. They could live anywhere and be on the board. When we look at the results, this past results of how schools perform, you notice that the number of charter school grades went down. We have, I think, a third of the charter schools now have a D or F grade. We reduced our number of D schools. We had no F schools from 27 to 9. Why did that happen? Because the board made a conscious decision that we would use the ESSER dollars, federal dollars, because of the pandemic, to make sure we had tutoring. We had a summer boost program for kids who were struggling. We had a summer LEAP program the next year for students who were struggling, and it paid dividends. Mm-hmm. Now, how the charter schools use those ESSER dollars, I'm not sure, but apparently they didn't use it to help bridge the gap that was created because of the pandemic, the educational gap that was caused by the pandemic. We really worked to make sure we had tutoring in place. We spent millions and millions of dollars provide tutoring to get our kids caught up, and they now have gotten caught up to where they were prior to the pandemic academically. Dr. Green's evaluation, going back to that test scores, it was made so that some of it is subjective and some is objective. Part of it being objective was you had to meet certain benchmarks. If the number of failing schools went down, then you got highly effective. If it went up, you did. Test scores the same way. Well, I felt it was unfair her evaluation went from highly effective in 2021 to effective in 2022, but we didn't account for the impact that the pandemic had on student education and progress. But she didn't want to change it. She said, no, that's what we agreed on 5 years ago, and we're going to stick with that strategic plan that these are the benchmarks that I'm supposed to reach. But I told Dr. Green, I don't disagree with you, but it's unfair to you as a superintendent that we would hold you accountable for something that nobody could predict was a pandemic.
The school system apparently ran a survey to find out from the general public what do they want to see in a new superintendent. Right. And it says you got something like 3,628 responses to that, which is a pretty good amount. What did you think of the results on that as far as what the people said they wanted, what qualities they wanted in a new superintendent?
I thought it was point on. I think when you look at the diversity of the school district and the dedication that so many parents and teachers have to making sure that all kids receive a quality education, I thought the survey was on point. The one back when Dr. Green was hired, one of the points that I noticed was missing this time was they wanted a person who had experience being a superintendent, that was thinking back in 2018 that one of the shortcomings of Dr. Vitti was the communication between the school board and the superintendent. And because he had never been a superintendent before, that was probably the reason for that. So that was, if you look at the 6 finalists that we selected from, I think 4 of the 6 were sitting superintendents somewhere in the country.
Let me just go through real quickly what the questions were in this survey to give you an idea of the responses. The number 1, recruiting and training highly effective educators. Mm-hmm. Being fiscally transparent about how Duval County half-penny sales tax is spent on school improvement. Increasing family and community partnerships with the school system. Supporting struggling students and helping them succeed, providing a culture to improve academic, social, and emotional development. And the top answers about the strengths of the Duval school system: diversity received 198 votes. That was the top vote getter. Communication came in second, it was 74, and teachers came in 49. The top answers about challenging Duval schools is 138. Transportation, which we want to get into with the new contract for your transportation provider. Teacher retention received 107 votes, and teacher shortages received 31 votes. I thought those were very interesting.
Yeah,
the way they came out.
And transportation is a major issue that we have to. I think $64 million we spend a year just on transportation. Part of the reason is we have magnet programs. The state does not reimburse you for transporting kids to magnet programs. We also reduce the distance you have to walk from 2 miles to 1.5 miles. So the state does not reimburse you for that half-mile distance. If a child lives within 2 miles of a school, that child is required to walk. Because former boards, not this board, but school boards in the past saw that we had so many railroad crossings and so many interstates here, we wanted to reduce that to 1.5 miles. So all those impact the cost of transportation, and we're working with the superintendent and her staff to try to find a way that we can reduce that cost. And of course, school desegregation plays a part in that too. There's no reimbursement. If you're busing a kid because of a magnet program because you're trying to make that school more diverse, then of course there's no reimbursement for that either. Yeah. So we have a lot of challenges with public education, with transportation in particular, and so with teacher retention, getting quality teachers before our students, and also absenteeism is a big issue. Mm-hmm. We have in some schools 40% of the students are chronically absent. That means they miss 19 more days of school a year. And as many superintendents and teachers said, we can teach them to read if they come to school. Right. The problem is getting to come on a consistent basis and being on time and being engaged. And we have a large, other thing I didn't point out, we have about 3,000 homeless students who we have to provide transportation to, where they live in Clay County. That, we have to provide transportation to them to their school, homeschool from the county line to that school. I
wonder if the absenteeism, though, has been affected because of what we had to do during the pandemic. I mean, these kids got used to learning at home. They really did. It may not have been the best thing for them.
Unfortunately, that problem existed prior to the pandemic.
Okay. So did the pandemic contribute to the problem, do you think, or would have been the same no matter what?
It exacerbated the problem some, but it was there. And we've have a number of programs that really go out and target those students who are chronically absent, work with the families, if it's transportation, if it's mothers working 3 jobs and not home, those kind of issues.
Guys, we're getting near the end. Mr. Tolbert, do you have a final question you'd like to ask?
No, I really don't. I just want to say again, Warren, I want to say again how much we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Your service and your friendship.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for standing up for Superintendent Green. Yeah. And thank goodness that you're here for another year. But what worries me is what happens after a year.
I can tell you what happens. We have some opening on the Duval City Council, and I think that perhaps we need some of that institutional knowledge to go back to the 4th floor of City Hall.
I don't know where you're going to find that.
Well, no, seriously, thank you for your service. Not only for all that you're doing for the school system, but for those many 20 years there on the City Council. We thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
True public servant. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of Mike's on Mike. Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Once again, we're brought to you by the Jacksonville History Center, which houses the Jacksonville Historical Society. And we appreciate, of course, Alan Bliss and the entire staff over there for helping us out and supporting us. We'll see you again next week. Catch our program, of course, on Facebook, on YouTube, on our website, which is mikesonmike.com, or any place where you get your podcast. We hope you have a good week, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and Mike Miller can be found at your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook and YouTube. Learn more at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversations with Mike's on Mike.